Hello. I'm Sebastian Ane, the Almost Naked CEO, your intention strategist. I'm here because I care and because I give a damn to dream big and make it happen for you, for myself, for everybody as we build each other up using creativity, engagement, and leadership. Now, talking about leadership, that's what this show is all about. This is Unleashed Leaders of Change. And when we talk about change, it's always about trying to make things better. It's always about trying to improve life for yourself, for others. But what if circumstances, life, situations, people, experiences, betrayals, and so much more degenerates your life, literally destroys everything that you have built and interrupts your dreams, your entire journey as you plan, and you don't know how to handle it, how to deal with it. And I am silencing my phone. And you're lost. You don't know where to go next. In such a situation, how do you bring yourself back? And how do you change your path? How do you change the trajectory of things to have that strength again, have that clarity again, and be able to regenerate yourself and your journey into something positive? That's exactly what we're talking about today. Degeneration to regeneration, change through regenerative leadership. So, as you know, I don't talk about my guest. I don't read no bios. I'm just going to introduce you to my guest and let them talk about it. Only thing I'll tell you is that since I have met her, she has become a friend, she has become a guide, she has become a power in my life personally because of her kindness, her patience, her understanding. It's beautiful how um, patient she has been with all the changes that's going on and with things going on in her own life and everything, but still kind, compassionate. And I think that's all the power of regenerative leadership that she's going to talk about. And I see Pamela is here. Hey, Pam, how you going? Pam was our guest last week. So there we go. All right. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest, Dr. Patti Talbot. Hi, Patty. How you going?
I'm doing great, Sebastian. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, you know, we're talking about degeneration to regeneration, and we're talking about the challenges life brings, and suddenly you're thrown out of your own game. You have no idea where you're going suddenly. So you have obviously been through that, and we're going to talk about that. But before that, for the audience benefit, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do at the moment.
Yes. Well, I'm Patti Talbot. I call myself a educator. And by that, I mean I work to cultivate homegrown change makers. And that means I celebrate change makers' work. I try to support the work of change makers. And whenever I've given the opportunity, I talk about what it takes to be one, because I'm on a journey to be one. And I figured a few things out that I think other people might want to know too. So that's me.
Absolutely. And you know, educators anyway have such a great role in society, and you have actually used that role to properly make it all about leadership, make it all about creating life again, renewing your life, renewing your entire mindset. And you know, that will be a lot of our topic for our conversation about renewing everything. So, Patty, let's first talk about a little bit about your childhood. Who was little Patty growing up?
Well, little Patty was called little Patty Ann when she was a little girl, because my full name is Patricia Ann Ayers Talbot. And so I was called Patty Ann. And when I started school, I thought that sounded too country. So I made my family drop the Ann part. I was raised in a Methodist, United Methodist pastor's home. And if you know anything about that, that means you move around a lot, because the tradition has been that the pastors in the Methodist church moved around a lot. But a very liberal Christian background. But those moves were really influential to me, as well as the faith that I grew up with from my parents. And my mom was a registered nurse, and I loved moving and making new friends. And so change became very natural to me until I got to be a teenager, and then I got a little grumpy about having to leave my friends. But yeah, that's my childhood.
Well, that's interesting. So you say, you got a little grumpy. How so? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, kids, when they get to be, 13, 14, 15, they don't like much about what their parents decide anyway. And at about that age, you start getting really attached to your friends in a different way. And I made my parents suffer just a little bit when they took me away from one of my very best friends when we moved. So I was grumpy about that. But in the long run, I think it helped me to learn to be able to transition in new situations. So I got over
you
it.
know what? I can relate to that because today only on my social media, I posted 2 truths and 1 lie. And one of those is about that. So we'll talk about that, later. But yes, I can understand being grumpy about losing somebody you're really good friends with. And, in other words, you've been a typical teenager and
Yes,
making sure that their parents remember that.
that's
So,
right.
Patty, growing up, from childhood to now, your journey has changed quite a bit. And, when did the education journey start? Did you always know that you wanted to be in education? You wanted to teach?
Actually, no. I grew up, in the 60s and 70s during the women's liberation movement, and I very much had this desire to do something outside of what women typically did. And in that time, we were secretaries, teachers, and nurses. I have great respect for all of those professions, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do, to break that glass ceiling. But then when I was in college, I had a male friend, who said to me, Patty, what you'd be good at would be an elementary school teacher. And at first I was quite offended by that, actually, because I had this idea of leadership in some way, and I didn't necessarily see my path the way it unfolded. But yep, not always, but it was
So
always
are
my
you
career.
saying that you didn't think that education is about leadership at that time?
At that time, I didn't. I just was, I loved my teachers, and I grew up liking to play school and all that sort of thing. But I thought of it as typical, I think. And so it
And
wasn't really until I
how
got
did it
into it.
change into that view came? How did you change your views to seeing education as leadership?
Well, it came about over time, I think. When my friend suggested that I entertain that, I actually got into my studies as an elementary teacher, and I loved them because I did enjoy that. And I did kind of start to realize I could have my own little queendom in the classroom. I could kind of be in charge of something in there. But it wasn't very long until I really started noticing what my leaders were doing. I went from the classroom to being a counselor, actually a school counselor. And by the time I entered the doctoral program, I was in a group that was mixed teachers and principals. And I started recognizing that those school leaders weren't just the disciplinarians in the office that took kids in there when they were in trouble. I had a misguided notion of what school leadership really was all about. And so thankfully, I had some wonderful mentors in school leadership that taught me not only that you are a leader from your classroom, and all the teachers in schools are very much leaders, and they can step into that role, but also there's opportunities,
And that's
to
what it is.
progress. Yeah.
Absolutely. As children or as we grow up, we don't see leadership is misunderstood a lot, actually. People think leadership means it is about fame, it is about having power, it is about somehow being a public figure. But everybody's a leader. Everybody's got a little leader in them. In your family, your mother is your leader, your father is your leader in doing different things. So I think it's a beautiful way of how you realize, and that's what it is. As we grow in different experiences, we understand we are all leaders just in different ways. We're just good at different things. Nobody
Yes.
is good at everything, but everybody is good at something. right?
Right. And if I could interject here, because I had this thought about, the saying,
Absolutely.
lead a life of whatever is, I really have come to believe that leading starts with leading yourself, leading yourself into the life that you
Absolutely.
want to have. So that really framing has helped me a lot. Yeah.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with it. You do not, kindness, leadership cannot begin without being kind to yourself and without leading yourself. It all begins
Mhm.
with you.
Yes.
So, Patty, life changed later on. Things happened. You went through a little bit of sabbatical. Tell us a little bit about that. What exactly happened in your journey? What was the sabbatical all about?
Yes. Well, I always liked change. I think that came out of my childhood. And so I went from classroom to counselor to principal to college professor. And every change along the way until this one particular point was really self driven. It was me wanting to develop myself and try the next thing. And then I was a college professor in the educational leadership program at my university, loving it, loving my students, loving what I was doing, and I was getting really excited about this idea of global education. So I asked the university if I could take a year away to research global education, particularly in rural schools like where I live here in Southwestern Virginia. So I was on leave doing research, and I had this accident happen. And it wasn't a very serious accident, but I broke my shoulder and my knee on opposite sides of my body, which made it really difficult to get around. And, it wasn't life threatening in any way. But I had this big aha moment when I recognized that I was injured enough that I was requiring surgery, I was requiring therapy, and at the same time, my dad was aging and very, very ill with a version of Parkinson's disease, and my mother-in-law was also very, very ill. And so I had this realization one morning when I was feeling sorry for myself, and I was, pondering my life, that I've had enough years in public education now that I could actually take my retirement so that I could regenerate myself and help
Right.
them. We think about regeneration and degeneration. We're really always doing one or the other, right? You're either building up or degenerating. And they were in that phase of life where they were passing on, and I had a choice to make. Do I keep on this wonderful life that I love, but it was kind of a rat race, and I was working within the bureaucracy and trying to follow all the rules, and do I keep on doing that, or can I take this time, take a breath, heal myself, do what the therapists tell me to do, and get myself whole enough to be able to do the caretaking that was falling all on my beloved husband's shoulders. And he needed help too. So,
That
yeah.
must have been really challenging. You're going through a personal challenge, and then your own parent is suffering, your partner's parent is suffering, and it's like a whole lot happening at once.
Yeah.
That must have, I don't know, like it must have broken you down in some way at that moment.
Yeah.
So
It really did.
how did
I
you?
think, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I went through a very big awakening, because my identity, after all those years, even though I resisted the identity of educator for a little while, once I embraced it, I was all in, and I loved who I was as an educator and who I got to work with as an educator. And so it was a real crisis of identity, I think, because I did decide to retire. And then very quickly I was like, ruh-roh, I'm happy to be out here being able to make my own decisions, but who am I now? Because my whole identity, I mean, of course, I'm a wife and a mother and a grandmother and other things too, but my main identity as a person was educator. So I had to really rebuild that identity, I think. Yeah.
And that's what it is. We live our life so much around loving and caring for everybody else and everything else. It's kind of the social construct. You're supposed to be a family person. You're supposed to be, social, taking, performing all your responsibilities. And in the process, your own identity gets degenerated. It kind of vanishes away. So, you talk about, I actually want to go into the terminology itself. You talk about regenerative leadership. What is it, and where did you learn the term?
Well, I first heard the term. I was in this program because everybody who knows me knows I'm a little addicted to learning, and I keep taking these programs. And so one of the programs I took before I took leave, retired from the university, was a program through the United Nations University of Peace. And I had a professor from the educational leadership program at the Florida Atlantic University taught a course called Regenerative Leadership. And it really just resonated with me. I liked the word regenerative. I liked the way it was put together with leadership. I liked the focus on consciousness as a way of being. And it was very much used in contrast to the word sustainability, which of course, we use a lot as a very positive thing. We need sustainability in our, what we're doing to our planet and all those things. But this professor, John Hartman, was proposing regenerative leadership as an alternative way of thinking about the way we interact with our planet and with each other. And it was very much about looking at the ideal self as an individual, as well as ideal, society, what we need for our planet. And, that how do I get from where I am to where I want to be as an individual, as a society, and how do we help that happen for our planet too. So that's where I got the term from.
And it is really all about really finding your own greater purpose, isn't it? Having that clarity of, who am I? Why am I here? Really.
Exactly. Right. Those big questions.
Absolutely. So, you decided that you're going to get more into regenerative leadership, and you started that with Blue Roads Education, I believe. Is that the right name of the?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit more about what does Blue Roads Education do, and how does regenerative leadership play a part in it?
Yes. Well, I've played with all kinds of terms with the word regenerative in it, from regenerative retirement, regenerative life, regenerative leadership. And Blue Roads really started at this place where I was seeking my identity, my new identity as a, quote, retired person, and really reflecting on, what is it that is in my identity and my skill set that I still I think might be valuable to the world, and I still want to make good use of it. I was young enough. I'd like to think I'm still young enough to make a difference in the world. So Blue Roads grew out of that, my desire to continue to do something useful in the world and regenerate myself, right? How do I rebirth, re-envision, who am I? And so, now what I say is, I help especially late career women refocus their talents and find the freedom to change the world on their own terms, because that's what I'm trying to do for myself. And, when you have an idea, I've discovered sometimes we hold our ideas back because we think, oh, it's too simple or not earth-shattering or whatever. Yeah. But what I've found is when we share even our little ideas, it inspires other people to share their ideas too. And they might find some resonance with your thought, and they might use it, or they might regenerate it into an idea of their own.
Absolutely. They could have their own version of the same idea or something else. And it's sometimes you need that little inspiration, that little hint from somebody else to be actually able to find your own creativity or look into your own dream as something really possible. I absolutely love that. I'm a little bit curious. So why Blue Roads? What's behind the story of Blue Roads?
Oh, good. I love that question. This is because of my stepmother. I have a stepmother who is still living, who married my dad late in life. And I have this dream that I want to go across the USA, and what I call across the USA in 100 miles a day on the rural roads, because I live in a rural community and I love visiting the cities, but I also kind of want to figure out, what makes people stay in rural society. And so anyway, when I was talking to my stepmom, Sally, and saying, I want to, travel on the roads, the back roads, the rural roads. And she said, oh, you want to be on the blue roads, because on a map, I don't know if this way all over the world, but most of our maps around here, the red roads are the interstate highways and the blue roads are the back roads. So that's how it was born. It was born out of this idea of connecting global to the local, because that was my passion as I was taking sabbatical, is, how do we connect global to our rural schools and so forth. So that's the origin. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. It is networking, and it's networking personally, and I guess professional goals, personal journey, everything all connecting together. And I see High Tech Mother says, I'm really loving this conversation. Thank you for tuning in.
Nice.
Okay, so we're going to take a real quick break. And after the break, we'll talk more about what Blue Roads is. And you've done a little bit of writing, you've done a little bit of creative, contribution to the society, and we'll get into that. So we'll be right back after this break. Go on, you know what you need to do. Click on. And here we go. So guys, if you're tuning in right now, I'm Szebastian One, the Almost Naked CEO, your intention strategist. And with me on Unleashed Leaders of Change is Dr. Patti Talbot. We're talking about regenerative leadership, from degeneration in life to regeneration, whether it's professionally, personally, and more. And if you have missed any part of the conversation, go and play the replay, because this is one fun conversation and you'll learn a lot. So Patti, one thing about leadership is getting the message out there, and you've been doing that through writing books. So I want to just play a little slideshow for people, and if you don't mind explaining, we'll be off camera, but people will be able to see slides. So if you don't mind explaining a little bit about each book and everything, there we go. Be with me. There we go. So let's begin from the first slide. Now that's fun. Every slide is shown already. It's the other way around. Okay. So first of all, what is this chart about, if you don't mind explaining a little bit?
Not a bit. I was saying about sharing our ideas, how no matter how simple. And this idea is something that came to me, built out of research of other people who've explored what it means to be a change maker, as opposed to simply a good person. Of course, we want to be good people. But at Blue Roads, we define change maker as really focusing on these four quadrants: our beingness, who we are as people, like you started by asking me about my background and who I was; our doingness, what is it we want to show up in the world and work on? What is it we're passionate enough to get up off our derrieres and do something about. Connecting, which is certainly about building relationships with other people, especially people with very different perspectives than our own, because we're not going to change the world by just hanging out with our best buds that had exactly the same background or belief system or experiences that we did. And then the reflecting quadrant is all about what do we reflect out into the world. Leadership is in this quadrant, so that that's worth somebody considering emulating. So that's my little framework that you can learn a whole lot more about on the website and with my courses and all those kind of things. But that's the gist of it. Being, doing, connecting, and reflecting helps me to regenerate myself every single day.
I love that, and I can already see there are some beautiful comments. High Tech Mother says that's clever, and she says a beautiful way to look at things. I need to print this. Well, there you go. Awesome. And Pam says love that. So obviously you're getting some love here. Thank you guys for staying in the conversation. Now I'm looking at your logo, and it says change the world on your own terms. Now that's actually interesting, and tell us a little bit more about that motto itself.
Yes. Well, I have a number of logos for different purposes, and this is one that I created specifically for a little show that I'm doing every week with the Win-Win Women's Network. And the title of the show, the program, is On Your Own Terms. And that's what it's about, is, as I mentioned before, about helping people show up, refocus their talents, and change the world on their own terms. Because even though I have that little framework that encompasses all the attributes that change makers have in common, the journey is different for every person. And it really is all about us looking in and finding, who am I and what do I have to offer to the world? So
Absolutely. The first part is if you don't recognize yourself, you can't really help anybody else. So
exactly.
love that. It's beautiful. And I think in later years, all of us go through that stage. As I say, as I started growing up, actually, I realized, oh my God, living a life for others, living a life on others' terms, and that's not getting me anywhere. From being a pioneer into a lot of things I was doing, I was the first in everything. Suddenly I find myself like, okay, I'm lost. I am not doing anything I enjoy. And I think that's what I love, that you do it on your own terms.
Yeah.
You love what you do and you're happy with it, and your journey changes and you're helping others from that. Um, Now let's talk about this next book. Let me find where the slides are. Sorry. Okay, the book actually. Sorry. Okay. So here's the book that you have written, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. Tell us a little bit more about this book.
Absolutely. And I am a contributor to these books that you'll see. So I've written a chapter.
Sure.
This book is one of a series that is headlined by the main author, Anna Pereira, who started an organization that I've gotten involved with called the Wellness Universe. Amazing group of healers and practitioners that are changing the world on their own terms. So in this book, my chapter is the first chapter in the book called The Changemaker Tree. And I use the metaphor of a tree to teach the changemaker's journey that you saw in that 4-quadrant framework, doing,
Right.
connecting, and reflecting. But I use the metaphor of a tree to teach people how to change the world from the ground up.
I love that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And what is Habits of Success? Of course, the name says what it is, but
Yes.
what's your
But Habits
contribution
of
in this book?
Success is another collaborative book. This one is done through an organization called Leaders Press, is the publisher. And my chapter, I actually can't remember. I think it's chapter 12. And it's called One Important Question. And it actually begins
Ooh.
with the story that I told you about how I didn't really want to be a teacher.
Right.
um, and my one important question, I'll tell a secret, I'd like you to read it, but the question is, what am I missing? Because I think all along, no matter where we are, if we are just looking at things from our own perspective, we are not going to get very far. We're going to be missing things because we are merely individual humans, with our observations of the world. So I have a good friend who taught me to often ask that question, what am I missing? And so that's what this chapter is all about. A habit of success is always asking that question.
I love that, and I'm really curious, super, super, super curious. I'm going to go and look for this book.
Oh, good. I
Um,
hope you will.
then, now you've just recently be also part of this new book that has come out. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Yes, this book is fourth in the series of the Wellness Universe Complete Guide to Self-Care, and this one is called 25 Tools for Goddesses. My chapter is chapter 5, which is titled The Legacy Journal, Story Keeping for the Ones You Love. And I hope you'll check it out because it really was a labor of love. And I use my grandchildren as, one particular one of my grandchildren as kind of the storytelling example, because it's all about how we can take moments out of every day and assign them meaning, and then that becomes that's what we turn into memories for the people we love. And I especially use examples of children, because I think if we, I'm a grandmother, my grandchildren call me Go-Go, but you don't have to be a grandparent to do this for people that you love. It's just, it's a practice of daily recognizing the moments and making note of them, holding on to them so that you have them for celebrations, bedtime stories, funerals, whatever comes along, you have those stories ready that help people know that people in your life know that you saw them and something that they
Really,
did was worth making note of, worth remembering in their lives.
it is really about being present in the moment with
It
people,
is.
right? And
Yes.
it's being that support and being that person present for them that they need in the
Yes.
moment. And High Tech Mother is asking, where can we find them? Is it also available in ebooks?
Yes, all of these books are available as ebooks, and they can all be found on Amazon. And
Awesome.
this last one, actually, if you read it, you'll see where you go to get a link to a downloadable legacy journal that can be downloaded as many times as you want for keeping those stories. So there's that extra
and
little.
We will share that link in the comments as well after this, guys. So I'm
Yeah.
just going to quickly go through the books again, just so that people can remember. It's Complete Self-Care, 25 Tools to Achieving Anything with Anna Pereira and other authors, including Dr. Patti Talbot. Then we have Habits of Success, What Top Entrepreneurs Routinely Do in Business and Life. Again, you have contributed a chapter. And Complete Self-Care, Guide to Complete The Wellness Universe, Guide to Complete Self-Care, 25 Tools for Goddesses, focused more on women, or people who identify themselves as women. Beautiful. I love these books, and I think I'm going to check them all out and find out what's in there. And I hope everybody in the audience does too. Now, let's jump to a little bit of these pictures. What is this picture about? Tell us about this moment, please.
Yes. Well, this is a wonderful group of students and one other professor from Radford University on one of our many trips to the tiny sub-Saharan African country of Malawi. This is something that really fueled my passion for global education and really fueled my passion for learning about cultural competencies, because my first trip there, I will tell you, I was in my late 40s and I had not done a lot of international travel at that time, and my world was shaken up, happily shaken up, but I had many aha moments about things, learning what I didn't know. And I had to ask that question often: what am I missing here? What am I not understanding about the culture or the people that are trying to tell me something? And, I went in with my, American educator, this is how we do things in our schools kind of way. And boy, did I have an education coming to me. And I'm still on that journey, by the way. I have in no way arrived. But these are some of the wonderful, wonderful teachers, now teachers who were at the time students, learning to be teachers that we traveled with. Yeah.
And that's what it is about, opening yourself to what you already know, what you know in your culture, your family, your community, because that's what we do. We kind of just create ourselves around a system that we've been used to, and we're scared of that change, knowing beyond that. And I think that's travel. That's what travel does. It opens you up. It opens your mind. It changes you as a person.
Mm-hmm. It sure does.
Now let's talk about this picture. What is this about?
Yes. This picture was taken in Brazil. I was fortunate in 2018 to be able to travel with a group called Liaison America. My friend with the dark long hair, I can't tell what direction you all are looking in, but is Sandra Lima Argo, who's the founder of Liaison America. And I traveled with them to be able to do some preparation, a lot around the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, and also global education in their universities and schools there. So these are some of the folks that I worked with on that amazing trip that, again, broadened my global perspective that is still growing.
And I'm particularly very, very curious about globophobia. I look at pictures, the only word that I looked at is like, globophobia. Okay,
yes.
What is this about? So tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So this was a time I got invited back to my university after my retirement to work with a group of student teachers to talk about global education. And this term, because my interest particularly is about rural education and how we bring global education into the rural. Where I live in Southwestern Virginia, and a beautiful, wonderful, wonderful place, when we started talking global education, I had some people say, well, that's going to be anathema to the people around here. And I actually had to look that word up because they just meant, not appealing. People around here aren't going to relate to thinking more globally. And of course, I object to that, having had such a realization of, what I was missing by not having a global education growing up, and far, far into my career, actually. So I started looking at this idea of being afraid of all things global, or people that aren't from around here, or people with different ideas. It's kind of related to a cross between two ideas, both the xenophobia idea, being afraid of people
Right.
that are not like me,
Yeah.
and then also the idea of being resistant to global trade, or that idea that we need to be involved and engaged and understand the world beyond us. And you're probably aware in the US, we have some factions these days that are really trying to shut us down. And for me, that's shutting our minds and hearts down, and that's just not acceptable. And public schools are created to open our minds and make us able to think, and not to
Right.
close our minds and make us unable to think and relate to the rest of the world. So that's where that term comes from, and it's still a passion of mine.
I love that explanation. I love, learning. And in fact, I see more people are learning. High Tech Mother says, beautiful photos, beautiful stories.
Thank
And
you.
then she adds, globophobia, new word for me, learning a lot today. I agree. I am too. I never heard of that word before. And another word I can't right now pronounce, you just used. Um, but anyway, we're going to take a very short break, and then I have some interesting questions for you. So we'll be right back after this. Go on now. You know what to do. Click on. And we are back. Guys, if you're tuning in just right now, I'm Sebastian on it, the Almost Naked CEO, your intention strategist. And I'm here because I care and because I give a damn. And today I'm giving a damn about regenerative leadership with Dr. Patti Talbot. And we're talking about moving from degeneration to regeneration in personal and professional life using education and leadership and bringing people together. And I love it, using the power of travel as well. So much you learn. Travel itself is education, Dr. Patty, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. Yes.
Well, so let's get some fun education now. Now, what I do is I ask every time people some random questions. And I have 3 questions for you. I need you to select any 3 numbers between 1 and 25,
Oh
one
my
at a time.
goodness. One at a time. All right. I'll pick number 3 to start.
Okay, let me have a look. Where is it? Okay, number 3. What's the weirdest thing you have done as an adult so far?
The weirdest thing I've done as an adult so far. Oh my gosh. Huh.
Please don't say this interview.
Oh, no. This is a lot of fun. Oh, golly. Okay. Nothing is coming to me. Can we come back to that? I'll come up with something. I'm a
Absolutely,
weirdo.
absolutely. We absolutely can. Okay, pick second number, please, between 1 to 25.
All right, let's have 23. See if I do better on that one than 3.
Oh, this question has actually come before, so I can actually display that. If you were Madam Prime Minister or Madam President of any country, or in fact the entire world, what would you change overnight in people's bedroom?
In people's bedrooms.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's the
Okay.
change you're bringing an entire world in people's bedroom?
Okay. I would make there be no internet in the bedroom. So there's no Wi-Fi signals coming in. So because I think the bedroom needs to be off limits, and I'm not good about this myself, because as you know, because you're on the other side of the world from me, I am texting with Sebastian at 5 a.m.
Yes.
from my bed. It's there, but bad move. So yeah, that should go.
Well, guess what? I agree, because I do not take my phone, my laptop, anything in my bedroom. No, I do not have any social media on my bed, on my phone at all. Pam, Pam says, "What a scary question," because she got this question last time.
Oh yeah.
I recognize that question. Okay, now the last question actually is something that I always ask everybody. So, what would you do if you had $2 billion but if you had only 1 hour to spend, but not on yourself?
Oh, I would look up some project on the that's related to goal number 17, which is partnerships for the goals of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and I would run through the projects in there because there are always projects going for all those United Nations goals, and I would find one to invest that $2 billion in right there. Did you say billion or million? I want the billion.
2 billion. 2 billion.
Okay.
Well,
Either way, because to me, it's none of those other 16
it's
goals are
still
going to
going to
happen
serve.
without partnerships.
Absolutely. I love that. That's the smartest answer I've got for this question.
Oh, yeah.
Within 1 hour, one problem solved, which is going to work long term. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Awesome.
And first of all, Dr. Patti, this has been wonderful. I just have one last question before we wrap up. What is your message for humanity?
Oh, my. My message for humanity is that you do not have to be a hero to be a change maker. Ordinary people doing extraordinary things change the world every single day. And you and I can do that if we partner up and we ask the question, what am I missing? That's my message.
That is beautiful. And Pamela had to say that. You just have lemon squeezers. That's an inside joke. It happened last week.
I saw part of that interview. Now I need to go back and look at that part because I didn't see that part.
You have to go back and watch last week's episode to find out what the lemon squeezers is all about.
I will.
So, thank you, Pam. This will get some extra views. I love that. Thank you so much, Patti. It has been wonderful hanging out with you. And this is not the only time. You are part of the Intentional Network family now. So you know you'll be coming back. But please don't go anywhere. Stay in the green room. I will be with you very soon. And before you go, Pamela also says, thank you, Patti.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you so much, Szebastian. What an honor and a fun conversation.
Absolutely my honor. I will see you in a second. So guys, that was Dr. Patti Talbot, and we talked about from degenerative to regenerative life. Regenerate, renew, refresh yourself, and focus on self-care, focus on living on your own terms, and then change the world. One thing that I loved is the how you learn from travel. Travel changes and opens your mind and reconstructs your life in a way that living within the community, staying in one place, one culture doesn't really add to. And thank you, Andrew. You're tuning in a little bit late. Thank you for joining. And Andrew says, both did a great job. Thank you. We appreciate that. And Pam says, brilliant interview, Szebastian. Thank you. I am going to pat myself a little bit on that. Thank you. So, guys, it's all about taking care of yourself. It is all about being the first person to be kind to yourself, to look after yourself so that you can use that renewed energy, use that knowledge, use that learning, that open mind that you gain from travel and all other experiences to help others, to support others, and create a better world each day, every day. And that's what we like to do here on Intentional Network. So thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time. Until next time, remember, dream big, make it happen using the power of creativity, engagement, and leadership intentionally. Until next, take care.